So hello and welcome everybody. So I am here with a very, 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 very dear friend of mine, who said that he would be really happy to have a conversation with me about his experience of using the archetypes around public speaking. And he and I were having a conversation, and he was saying that he had to do a public speaking thing for his work. And there was something about what he said, and I'll be honest with you, I can't actually remember what it was that he said that made me think, oh, I've got exactly the right book for him. And it's a book called The King Within, that looks at really focusing. We talk about the sovereign archetype, but what this particular book talks about is the masculine aspect of that. But it could apply to the king or the queen, which is why we use this idea of sovereign anyway. But for this example, I suggested that you look at this book, The King Within, and you came back to me a few days later and was saying what great results it got. So the thing that I want to ask you quite simply is, what was it that made the difference so that you showed up at this meeting rather than showing up one way? Yeah. What was the difference that made it that you showed up a completely different way?
Well, the book and all of the discussions, all of the stuff around this, I think gives us a framework to approach something, because otherwise it's all a bit nebulous and a bit weird, right? So I I don't remember. So maybe give some background. I'm actually in my 50s. I'm pretty good at what I do, pretty confident in what I do. I'm knowledgeable. I'm still up to date with it as well in technical systems. And a few years back, we had to go. It was a weekly thing. We had to go around the table and talk about and give a little update about what we do. And one week, it came to me and went, and I don't know. I've been doing this for years. I could do it in my blindfold and in my sleep. I could even waffle and say, "Oh, I've done this, and this, and no problem." But one week, it was like this roadblock, just no. And I for some reason, I couldn't. I felt like I couldn't talk about it, and it was really bizarre. And to the point where I actually kind of sat back in my head and went, what's going on? This is bonkers. And at the time, I remember wanting to deal with it because it happened the second week as well, and then every week. And the more it happened, the earlier the block would come in, and I'd feel like this constriction and tightness. I don't want to talk about it, and I couldn't understand it at all. I suppose it's like someone who's been riding a bike all their life and suddenly asked to get on a bike and they go, "I don't want to get on it," and there was no explicable reason for it. So,
and I'm sure, sorry, just to jump in, but I'm sure there are lots of people that are really familiar with that thing of just feeling really nervous about public speaking. Like I remember just, my mind going completely blank when I stood up in front of people, having a completely sleepless night the night before, having loads of notes and just being fixated on my notes and it really getting in the way of my performance. So I imagine that what you're going to speak to is going to help people with that. But what you're saying is, yeah, I was really, really confident, and then suddenly somehow, I don't even know why or how, or I just suddenly found myself in that situation, and it hadn't happened before in that context.
And this was a few years ago, so it wasn't in the context of the book. Maybe it's a bit set up, I think, because I think they're related. So I did what I suppose what could be like, now that I've learned about the called warrior archetype, but you go into it, and I went on a public speaking course, and bizarrely, I was given two topics that I love talking about. One of them was how lucky we are to be alive. Oh, brilliant. And I got up and I had no problem with that. They had to tell me to get off. And one of the takeaways of it was, and the other one was music, which I was just learning. So I had no problem at all. I was really passionate about it. And one of the keys to public speaking is to be passionate about your subject. So I came away from that thinking, well, maybe I'm just not passionate about what I do in my day job. And I've always had a thing about not wanting to turn into like just a corporate cog, I suppose you could call it. So I didn't give my day job any love, but I could do it easily. And I thought it was that. And I think to some extent it was. And then recently had to do like talks to or had to do a talk to the company about what our department does, and I could feel that familiar feeling. Oh, here we go.
And if I remember correctly, you rang me, didn't you? Like before you were going to go on that call, and we had a conversation, right?
Yeah,
Which is when I introduced you to the book.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I listened to the book on audio and did and so another thing, I had another conversation with someone else, and it's probably just a coincidence. You know how these things are, right? But he was talking about doing the preparation. So again, the other thing is I could reel off these things on the fly. Yeah, I'll give you an update, blah, 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 without giving it any thought, really. No prep. But I hadn't really given any in-depth thought or care or love, I suppose, for a long time. And so when I had to give this talk, I realized I'd actually done no prep. And listening to him tell me, and this is one of the most confident men I've ever met, tell me that when he gets up, he's really nervous, which didn't compute. I mean, how does I look at him and see a confident, amazing, incredibly funny human being who's always prepared, and he's telling me that actually he's very nervous, and his secret is to prepare. And then he was telling me lots of other stories about people preparing and having loads of notes, loads of jokes, all set, practicing them and endlessly practicing them. So I had that, and armed with that little conversation and the previous public speaking course, we've got to be passionate about your topic. I went away and I listened to this book that you recommended, and it was brilliant. I love the way they speak about it, and it occurred to me after reading or listening to the book that I don't know to talk about the book, Dave Sand.
Yeah, if you like. Yeah, if you want to talk about the book, particularly about what you got from the book that really helped you.
Yeah.
Around that idea of talking. Yeah.
Yeah. So the book talks about the archetype of the king, the sovereign, and how it kind of ends. It's the last of the four famous archetypes of the lover, the wizard, and the warrior, and the king comes along. And it occurred to me after listening to that brilliant book that I was in my realm, in my day job, in work. I was actually for this department, for want of a better old school terminology, the king, right? So I'm the lead of this department. I've got my throne, I've got my title, I've got my wage, or whatever you want to call it. So everything's there, and there's no one else for me to hand this to.
And just to say, so that old label of calling the archetype the king or the sovereign, like in modern terms, we might use the word CEO, or we might talk about a team leader, we might talk about an entrepreneur or whatever, the context of kingship or sovereignship or queenship, that in a way doesn't matter. It's just it's the feeling, the energy of that. And I think that's what you're speaking to, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had this moment. I was going, well, what I'm doing actually here, whenever I come up and talk about this stuff, is I'm, in the words of the book, I'm abdicating my throne. So when it comes to actually, so I'm quite happy to sit there, earn the wage, be called it, but not really care about the kingdom I do care about the kingdom, but when it comes to talking about it, I was obviously um, the king that's going off and hunting in the woods and doing everything else and fighting the wars and everything. But when it comes to actually talking about what he's going to do and sit on the throne and give it and talk to the people,
Mm.
um, I was not being kingly. I was I don't know, maybe being more wizardly or more of a lover. I don't know what it, but definitely not owning that. And logically, then it didn't make any sense. I go, well, I've got the title.
Mhm.
Everyone looks to me. I'm actually from a from old school king perspective, giving the policies and everything, and leading from the front, from the back, sometimes. So suddenly this logical disconnect, and I realised what I wasn't doing was actually owning it in that moment.
Mm. And then can you speak a little bit more to what you mean by owning it in that context?
Yeah, it's a bit more clear to me now. But my self-perception about who I want to be, I never wanted to be like like a corporate cog. And I think looking at looking at the way I live my life, I'm quite happy the fact I'm not a corporate cog. There's a lot more to all of us than that, and our decisions. You know, who we are is a lot greater than that. So it's very kind of childish thinking, really. Um, but but that thinking and that way of viewing things has been fantastic because I've I have other things in my life that bring me a lot of joy and passion. So there's more to it than just work, and I think that's really important.
So you're saying that that belief about not wanting to be just a corporate cog
Yeah,
has meant that you have very consciously and actively gone out into your life and created whole other areas. I know, like, you're into surfing and you're into, mountain walking, and you're into music and you're into martial arts and you're into all these different things. And so that mindset or that belief system around not wanting to be just a corporate cog has had you really own lots of other areas of your life, and it's helped to make your life really fulfilling.
yeah. So this fear, let's call it a fear, pushed me into those areas, and I thank it profoundly. But now it's not. It wasn't serving me anymore. Um, when it came to being to kind of honouring the position I'm in,
Mm.
and may I add, quite happy to take the wage for, right? I wasn't. I wasn't. That old fear of running away from it was actually not doing me any good.
Right. So you were saying taking ownership of being that cog.
Yeah, but it's not. I think I've grown away from the fact that it's a cog, and with maturity, um, as I said, that fear actually has created a lot of brilliant places, a lot of brilliant life.
Mm-hmm.
It's a driver from, oh, I don't want to be that, so I'm running somewhere else. But in actual fact, with a bit of maturity and experience in a few years, everyone is much more than just a corporate cog. They've got their loves in their life, their own passions. So it was only my view, um, and some people quite rightly are, completely embedded in business. It's what they are and what they do, and they're brilliant at it and passionate at them. You can just look at them and see, you're meant to be a CEO. You're meant to be an entrepreneur. It's in your blood and the way you breathe and think and everything, and their world spins out from it. Um, that doesn't mean they're a corporate cog, and I think that thinking wasn't serving me anymore. It was detracting. So, owning my coming back to owning the position where I was happy to take the wage and be it, and also I do enjoy it, I think I'm okay at it. I think I'm okay at it, and um, so that the king within the book, it kind of gives a framework to see it, of owning this authority in a realm, and being this kind of wearing the mantle and the crown and sitting on the throne. It's not an egoic thing, it's an idea, If you look at the where I was as a realm, whenever it came to talking to about it, that brilliant country or whatever, that little realm, um, I I was I was still thinking from that old thinking, and when it came up there, that was the living representation to me of everything that I didn't want to be before.
Right,
You
right.
actually, right, hello company, corp, all this stuff.
So you're saying that you up until that point, you were doing your public speaking from this place of, I am a little cog. I'm a little corporate cog, and that there was something that didn't resonate for you there.
Not a cog at all.
Not a cog at all.
Yeah, and again, it's old thinking.
Mm.
So it was, talking and celebrating achievements of 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 what we do was like the living ultimate representation of like a corporate mindset, let's say. And in my old fashioned thinking, corporate mindset meant that you had no life. I mean, now it's laughable. It's absolutely laughable. It's so small. And obviously, I wasn't thinking that way, but I was carrying it.
Mm.
And so I had this moment where I went, oh, it was like a moment of epiphany. Let's call it an epiphany. Well, what are you doing? It's bonkers. Just you're obviously not. You're not a cog. You're not corporate through and through, but you're quite happy to earn the living, and this is what you do. So just go and do it. It doesn't mean that anything else has changed. You're still surfing and mountain climbing and all that stuff. That doesn't change a thing. So it's all about this old perception. And when I had that epiphany, I was actually really starting to look forward to it in a way, and combine that with the conversation I had with this other person who I'm viewing as absolutely amazing and confident public speaking, and his advice was to prep. I decided to put the work in and do lots of prep, and so I prepped it, and I practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced, and there was still something missing though, because the content was all kind of technical and a bit dry. And I re-listened to The King Within, and there was a brilliant, I think it was in here, it might have been some external reading around it, but the king, it was something like the king delights. Why does the king hold counsel? And I thought, oh, that's an interesting read. So I had a read of it, and the king holds, in the context of this, right? The king holds counsel not so that his counselors just sit and listen to him, but so that he can promote those amongst his council that have proven themselves of worth and celebrate their achievements. And he loves it because he gets to sit amongst these people that are doing amazing things, and it's a great honor and a great privilege that, and he's literally just facilitating this opportunity and being a reason for everyone to get together, and suddenly this person's skills there and this person can be encouraged. And I love that, and that became the core of the talk, where I decided to celebrate the achievements of everyone in the team, and to shout from the rooftops about how amazing they all are, because they really, really are. And it was quite an amazing change, because then the core of the talk became really passionate. I was really excited about it, and I literally couldn't wait to get up there and deliver this talk.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I remember when you and I were discussing it afterwards, when I thought, God, it would be great if you could come and you and I could talk about this and record it for the people on the Archetypes Academy community. That by reading the book and really taking on board what it was sharing about the king, the sovereign archetype, it was like you took that opportunity to really embody it and really own it and really feel it. And then one of the qualities of the sovereign archetype is this one of blessing. It's one of the things that they talk about in the book. And I remember sharing that with you. And it really struck home to me that what you did in that talk is that in front of your entire company, you were blessing your team. And I'm just curious about, well, what was the impact on your team when you did that?
Wow. They a couple of them weren't there, but they heard about it afterwards, and they felt fantastic. And I think there was just a general uplift. It felt like there was a general uplift from my perspective, and people were coming up and saying, "Oh, that was great, that was great," and it seemed to be quite inspiring. Um, if I may, I remember going to see a film with you once, and we were sat in the cinema, and the cinema, it's very British, where everyone's polite, sitting there, watching, enjoying their movie, and there was a hilarious moment, and you burst out laughing, like full belly laugh, knee slaps, and it was like this. The whole cinema went, "Ugh, I'm allowed to laugh, am I?" And I think there was a lot of people who naturally do what I do. So this was a moment of change for me. And some people naturally do this anyway. They haven't got the same. They've already, embodying this king quality in what they do. So I added to that, I think, rather than being like nothing or taken away from it. And I definitely felt there was a contribution to a relaxation or an inspirational feel in, let's say, in the cinema audience of our company talks. So there's no doubt it had an impact to myself and everyone in the team, and also everyone else who was there as well. I think just a positive feel good vibe, because it's great to hear people being passionate and celebrating other people's truly good stuff. Truly good.
Beautiful. Great. Thank you. And so as we draw our little conversation to a close, what would you, for anybody that is doing kind of some kind of public speaking, because I know that there's all kinds of different ways in which people can different contexts that people can speak in public to. Yeah. But if you were to kind of give one takeaway for yourself, one bit of advice, if you like, around that king or sovereign archetype, what would you invite people to take into their talks that would have them be able to speak from that passion and from that sense of serving a larger community?
So in terms of the king, can I cheat and throw a couple of others? So preparation is really crucial, I would say, because I won't go into, but just practice and practice. It's directly linked to confidence. Just practice, even if it's in a mirror. The other one is to be passionate about the subject. So even if you're not passionate, but if you have to go up and talk about sausages, you've got to go and find something about sausages and become passionate about it, whether it's the way they're now being made, which is a lot more humane and so on, whatever it might be. But as far as the king's concerned, that's a feeling of authority about the subject, or about the fact that maybe you've been asked to do it. So that's or challenged to do it. So that so how do you get that feeling of authority? For me, it was a realization that I've already got it, and I just wasn't doing it. But I do remember, for fun, imagining I had this like cloak on and a crown, and I walked up, and it's not there permanently. You take it off after the chat, you put it away. Yeah, take it off. But it does. It's right. Find the authority in what you're doing, which is easier said than done. And I suppose in a way I just wasn't being it, so everything else was there already. The framework was there, and it makes me wonder how. If I can say this as well, I am amazed that some of the youngsters in the company, they're like 21, and they'll come up and they'll go, "Brah!" and they'll give a fantastically passionate chat, and you have to kind of yank them off the stage because they'll go on forever. They're amazing. Um, so there's a question there, isn't there? Where is that? Where does that come from? And I think that's pure passion. Uh, I'm not sure where the king authority comes from. I think perhaps the archetypal journey is one that takes a few years. And you've got like a youngster with respect, maybe using the lover, so it's pure passion, or the warrior, where he or she's just going into it. After a few years, the lover is going to experience a bit more life. The warrior is going to experience a bit more life, and as is the wizard. And that with that wisdom comes a little bit of pain and understanding. It's not quite all on one side, and so all of these things get integrated, and I think that flourishes in the king.
Mm.
But that's not to say that you can't have a youthful king or queen.
Mm.
Yeah, have it in mind. I would say have it in mind. Listen to the story and see what happens for you. And if you go into it wanting to learn and open-minded, then perhaps the link will be made, and you'll find whatever that piece of advice is, because it should appear as a jigsaw puzzle.
Mm. Mm. So when you say listen to the story, you mean listen to the book?
Yeah.
Within.
Yeah, I think everyone will hear different words, like different sentences will appear for them. Like I heard particularly the council meeting,
Yeah.
and it gives you a framework to talk about things. But everyone, I think, if they're going to listen to that book, if they want to, if they're going to do something, then people are already looking for some way of looking at it, or some key to unlocking what it's already there. But I think perhaps it's already there. It's already there.
Yeah. And again, what I feel like is really important is that, like that thing where you were saying, imagine you're wearing the cloak and you've got the crown on your head, that there's this element of kind of giving yourself that opportunity to feel that energy, to feel that authentically in yourself.
Yes.
And then whatever shape, whatever flavor of sovereignty is available within you to express, then that's what you'll express. So your sort of the flavor of your sovereignty at 19 is going to look different at 35, which is going to look different again at 52 and 85. And,
yes.
There are these different seasons. And it's not that one is better than the other, or that one is necessarily more wise, or less wise. It's just that there's this kind of different expression, this different quality of kingship. And it's just about giving yourself that opportunity, giving yourself that permission, right? To be able to express that sovereignty in whatever context you find yourself in.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I would say, as a man in my 50s, I'll view and feel a king is like completely different. There's a couple of great movies that I think were brilliant and absolutely completely go hand in hand with this. One of them is The Woman King, and she was this. It's a film about a group of kind of true African Amazonian warrior women, and they were absolutely hardcore and feared throughout this region of Africa. And one of them becomes the king. It's a great story, and I really recommend it. So from a feminine perspective, you can see the power of the warrior and the king in there. It's really, really good. And the other one is I think it's just called King, and it's got Timothy Chalamet, and it's a story of, I think, King Henry V.
Yeah.
Where he's young when he assumes the throne, and so he doesn't want to be the king, and he's quite happy to get drunk and laze around in the pubs. It's the last thing he wants to do, but it's forced upon him, and actually he finds himself stepping up to it. But because he's young, he makes some mistakes, but he takes advice from the old generation around him. But brilliant, he steps in, and there's that lovely king authority in him, even though he's He's a very young man. So those two go brilliantly as examples of that king energy in
Yeah.
totally different worlds. Yeah, and
Yes.
different ages.
Yes. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Great. Yeah. And again, another one is The Lion King.
Yeah, yeah.
Which again, very cliche, but again, it is that thing of uh, life events, or our response to life events, meaning that we shy away. Just to bring it back to your thing of not that fear of not wanting to be a cog in a large corporate thing. There's this fear that that leads me to shy away from it.
Mm.
Because once I embrace it and once I see it for what it is, I can actually live beyond that
Yeah.
to something that's much bigger, and therefore I can express more of myself and be of greater service.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I just want to say that fear of it all that's led to this moment where you go, oh, I don't want to speak. It's given so much though. So there was that problem. That moment, it's really painful, but it's also given so much.
Yeah.
Once a certain time, once a certain events have unfolded, you look back and you go, wow, it's actually a driving force as well.
Great. Well, what a brilliant way to finish our talk. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm sure what you had to share will be of great inspiration and service to the people in the community. So thank you.
Thank you.